After 5 long years, Sarah Waldorf had finally returned home. She was now crowned the newest queen of the music scene. Meanwhile, I lay on a cold hospital bed inside a prison ward, wasted away and trembling with chills. I knew I wouldn't last much longer. Greedily, my eyes remained fixed on the entertainment channel blaring from the television in front of me. There she was, radiant in an elegant, pale strapless gown, her slender hand intertwined confidently with Michael, a rising star from one of the city's wealthiest families, as they stood poised for an interview. Her lips painted ruby red, her face flawless, as beautiful as ever. When a reporter from the audience asked about the man beside her, Sarah's ears turned crimson, yet her fingers tightened around Michael's hand. "Michael is my fiancé now," she declared softly but firmly. "In the darkest days of my life, he was the one who stood by me. I'm deeply in love with him, and immensely grateful." She turned toward Michael, her eyes full of tenderness. "Michael, there's only one moon in the sky, and there's only one you." Without hesitation, Michael leaned over and kissed her affectionately, before taking the microphone to speak himself. What he said after that, I couldn't hear clearly. The intimacy unfolding before me stung my eyes painfully. As the interview was nearing its end, Sarah suddenly addressed the crowd again. "5 years ago, when I was seriously ill, my ex-husband held his new lover and told me I was nothing but a useless, stupid woman. Today, I've proved him wrong. I'm not worthless." Her voice sharpened slightly. "I'm proud that I became my own savior, and that I've left a man like that far behind." An uproar erupted among the audience, furious murmurs and angry condemnations filled the room, all directed toward me, the heartless, selfish, vicious ex-husband. Though I had anticipated this scene countless times, the pain still sliced through my heart mercilessly. An indescribable ache silently consumed me from within. Still, seeing Sarah doing well now gave me a sense of peace. I switched off the TV. With trembling fingers, I reached up without hesitation and yanked the oxygen tube from my face. The suffocating sensation rushed in immediately, filling my lungs. The monitor beside me shrieked in frantic, high-pitched alarms until, finally, silence took over. Doctors burst into the room seconds later, nurses crowding in behind. Realizing there was no chance to revive me, one doctor sighed with an audible relief. "Well, he's finally gone," he said casually. "Scum like him didn't deserve to live anyway." I hovered silently nearby, looking down at the broken man lying on the hospital bed, face disfigured, legs shattered. Besides the visible injuries, I also had severe brain damage. It was a miracle I'd lasted this long. They covered my lifeless body with a white sheet and wheeled it toward the morgue. I drifted out of the ward. Suddenly, more than anything, I wanted to see Sarah again. Even though I knew she hated me with every fiber of her being, staying by her side was the only way I'd ever felt a trace of warmth in this world. I remembered when I was 10, surviving daily beatings and torment. The first time I saw her, I was begging on the street with an empty bowl. Behind her were 2 tall and intimidating bodyguards. When I was a child, I knew she was from a wealthy family as soon as I saw her. Dragging my crippled leg, I approached her and pleaded for help. She returned later, bringing police officers and an entire squad of bodyguards. She saved us, rescued dozens of beggars like me. I'd never forgotten the moment she walked toward us, backlit by the sun, glowing like an angel sent from heaven to save our tortured souls. After she left that day, I quietly followed her, trailing behind from a distance. All I wanted was to remember the face of the girl who had saved my life. But instead, she brought me home with her. She arranged for my crippled leg to be treated, and her father, Robert Waldorf, even sponsored my education so I could attend the same school as Sarah. Robert always jokes that no one eats for free in the Waldorf household. I hope you can learn fighting skills and self-defense skills and become Sarah's personal bodyguard. Her mother, Teresa, was gentle and kind-hearted, making sure none of the household staff mistreated me. Those days were undeniably the happiest of my entire life. Yet happiness never lasts. When I finally found Sarah again, she was at a bridal boutique, trying on wedding gowns. Michael, of course, was right there with her. Sarah softly ran her hand down the smooth fabric of her white dress, smiling sweetly up at Michael. "How do I look, my dear? Do you like it?" Michael's eyes softened, a warm, affectionate smile on his lips. "Beautiful. It's perfect." Then his gaze drifted to another gown nearby. "But that one looks gorgeous too. Want to give it a try?" The gown he was pointing to shimmered beneath the boutique's lights, its exquisite beads and intricate embroidery sparkling delicately. My heart jolted sharply. That gown was the very same one Sarah and I had chosen together 5 years ago, back when we planned our own wedding." Instantly, the gentle smile on Sarah's face vanished, replaced by an expression of disgust. "No," she said coldly, turning away. "It's hideous. When did your taste become so awful?" Without another word, she spun around and headed back into the fitting room to change. I stood there, frozen, lost in a daze. 5 years ago, she'd said something entirely different. I still remember her bright, radiant smile as she held my hand and whispered excitedly, "Ethan, look how beautiful it is. I'm going to wear that gown when I marry you." I had been so thrilled I couldn't sleep the entire night. Unable to contain my excitement, I rushed back to the store in the middle of the night, paid for that very dress, and planned to surprise her. But in the end, she never wore it, not for me. Now she was marrying someone else. I lowered my gaze, a bitter, self-mocking smile playing on my lips. "Congratulations, Sarah. You're getting married." After Sarah changed back into her regular clothes, Michael took her home. But their shopping date had already been captured by paparazzi, and soon the internet was buzzing. Fans and netizens were ecstatic. Later that evening, Sarah lounged on the sofa, idly scrolling through social media comments. Suddenly, her eyes caught a post with tens of thousands of likes. "Michael is so sweet. Isn't he 1,000 times better than Sarah's jerk of an ex-husband? I'd become a vegetarian for life if it meant Sarah and Michael stayed together forever. As for that ex-husband, I hope he rots eternally." Clearly, the message pleased her. Her lips curved into a satisfied smile, yet the raw hatred in her eyes stabbed into my heart, leaving me breathless. She opened her photo gallery, selected a stunning image of herself in the bridal gown, and posted it on social media with a heartfelt caption. "I grew wildly and couldn't become my own moon, but meeting you was the sweetest gift the galaxy ever gave me." As soon as she shared the photo, she tagged Michael's account. Within moments, Michael responded publicly. "Sarah, marrying you is the greatest fortune of my life." Their public declarations sparked yet another storm online, drawing in countless eager followers and spreading rapidly once more. Sarah stared at the screen and whispered softly to herself, "Do you see this, Ethan? The whole world is blessing me. I want you to know how amazing my life is now. Who do you think you are? I deserve to be loved, and you don't." Her voice trembled, bitterness spilling into every syllable. "Ethan, how could you do that to me? She must have truly despised me." Her eyes slowly turned red, tears forming rapidly, slipping down her cheeks one after another. She pulled tissue after tissue, desperately trying to wipe them away. I watched her helplessly, the ache in my chest swelling like an unstoppable tide. "Sarah," I wanted to tell her, "I always loved you." I opened my mouth to explain, but where could I possibly begin? She sat on that couch all night, and I stood silently beside her until morning. This was the first time I'd seen her since we parted 5 years ago, and still, I couldn't get enough. The next day, after quickly freshening up and grabbing a bite for breakfast, Sarah drove straight to the hospital. 5 years ago, she had fallen from a rooftop, fracturing her spine and losing our unborn child, an accident that cost her the ability to ever bear children again. It had taken 2 long, painful years overseas for her body to fully heal. Today, she was here for a routine checkup. Who would have guessed that she'd run into Connie in the hospital hallway? Sarah stopped abruptly, visibly shaken. I was equally stunned, I couldn't believe the coincidence either. Connie was the woman I'd held tightly 5 years ago, the woman I'd chosen over Sarah, pushing her away mercilessly. My so-called new love. Connie stood there, her hand gently resting on the slight swell of her belly, passionately kissing a young man wrapped around her like she couldn't bear to let go. Sarah's eyes locked fiercely onto the young man. When she realized it wasn't me, a mocking smile curled her lips. "Well, look at you, Connie. Pregnant and still fooling around? Does Ethan know about this?" Sarah's voice dripped sarcasm, eyes glittering as if she'd just discovered an entertaining new game. "Maybe I should tell him what his darling wife does behind his back." Connie jerked away from the man instantly, panic flickering across her face, but Sarah moved quicker, already snapping several photos of their intimate moment. She casually waved her phone, voice deceptively calm, "You know, Connie, Ethan has a pretty nasty temper. How do you think he'll react if I send him these lovely pictures?" My heart jumped violently. After everything that happened between us 5 years ago, could Sarah really have kept my contact details? Connie froze, staring blankly before blurting out in disbelief, "You really don't know? Ethan, he's already..." My entire soul seemed to seize, screaming silently for Connie to shut her mouth. Sarah's eyes narrowed sharply. "He's already what?" Connie hesitated briefly before replying gently, Miss Waldorf, you can save your effort. Ethan won't ever receive your message. Sarah obviously hadn't expected Connie's calm demeanor. She laughed coldly, irritation flaring in her eyes. What's wrong, Connie? Brave enough to cheat, but too afraid to face your husband? Now I really have to let Ethan know that the wife he picked up from some seedy bar is cheating again. Who knows, maybe even this child you're carrying isn't his. Connie sighed softly, shaking her head, Miss Waldorf, it's not what you think. The past is the past, let it go. Ethan, he's... Sarah's expression hardened immediately, voice icy cold, shut up. You have no right to talk to me about him. Sarah quickly opened her social media app, found my profile, and without a second's hesitation, sent the incriminating photos. She typed furiously beneath them. How does it feel, Ethan? Take a good look at this, this is the excellent wife you chose. This is karma. Once sent, she stared intently at the screen, as if waiting for me to explode with rage from the other end. She clearly hoped I would storm over, humiliated and furious, catching Connie in the act and teaching her new lover a brutal lesson. Better yet, perhaps she secretly hoped I'd drop dead from anger. The gentle, tender Sarah from 5 years ago was long gone, this woman standing here was sharp-edged and bitter. She wished nothing but misery upon me. I gazed at her silently, the ache deepening. Sarah, it wasn't that I didn't want to reply, I simply couldn't anymore. Besides, the man you're seeing Connie with right now is actually her real boyfriend. Ever since you left for overseas, Connie and I had long parted ways, clearly and completely. Sarah waited impatiently. When no reply came, her expression darkened, and she sneered, 5 years apart, and Ethan's turned into a spineless coward? Happily sharing his wife with others, how utterly disgusting. Connie tried once more, gently protesting, no, Sarah. It's not like that. Ethan wasn't spineless, he did it because. But before Connie could finish, Sarah's phone suddenly rang. It was her music producer calling. Sarah had no choice but to put the confrontation aside, answering the call with frustration. Connie hesitated briefly, then took the chance to slip away quietly, arm linked tightly with her boyfriend's. She knew more than she was letting on. Before we'd separated, I had paid her generously to keep her silence, warning her explicitly never to approach Sarah or reveal certain truths. Today's unexpected encounter had alarmed me, but thankfully, Connie seemed to have remembered our agreement. She hadn't said too much. After finishing her call, Sarah saw I still hadn't replied, sighed irritably, and walked into her doctor's office. At least there, she got some good news, her recovery was progressing well. After finishing her examination, Sarah glanced back at her phone. Our conversation was still frozen at the previous message she'd sent. On impulse, she tapped out another sharp line. What, Ethan, haven't seen you in years. Are you dead, or just hiding? You can't hide forever. When she got home, Sarah posted a photo of her and Michael sharing a romantic kiss at the recent event. Comments immediately flooded in, calling them the perfect couple, completely disregarding the minor detail that they weren't even married yet. I knew exactly what Sarah was doing, showing off her happiness in the most flamboyant way possible, just so I'd see how incredible her life had become. Meanwhile, I, Ethan, was nothing but a pitiful wretch stuck in some filthy ditch, no longer worthy of her glance, much less happiness. Reading through the enthusiastic comments, a pleased smile blossomed on Sarah's lips. After a moment's pause, she selected the incriminating pictures she'd snapped at the hospital, forwarding them to an unlabeled account. She attached a short, simple message. Make this go viral. Within minutes, another wave swept through social media, following closely behind the perfect couple buzz. Music queen Sarah Waldorf's ex-husband Ethan finally gets his karma. Ethan's second wife caught with another man. Years after abandoning his injured wife for a mistress, karma hits Ethan hard. Shocking revelation, Ethan's pregnant second wife allegedly cheating, the baby might not even be his. One after another, sensational headlines appeared, each prominently featuring the photos Sarah had taken. And beneath each scandalous post, countless netizens cheered gleefully at my apparent downfall. The scumbag finally got what he deserved. Ugh. Too bad the headline isn't about his funeral instead. Grabbing popcorn, waiting for the jerk to explode on his cheating wife. Followed. Waiting eagerly for updates. Sarah picked a random viral thread and reposted it on her own account, adding just one simple sentence. Whether or not you believe in karma, it always comes eventually. Immediately, commenters from across the web flooded onto her post, their countless likes stacking into a wall of approval. Sarah stared at her screen with satisfaction, whispering softly to herself, "This is my gift to you, Ethan. Do you like it?" Without contrast, there's no true pain. The brighter Sarah's life shone, the more starkly miserable mine appeared in comparison. She was deliberately trampling over whatever remained of my dignity. Now, with her fame skyrocketing, it wasn't suitable anymore for her to mock me directly. This subtle humiliation suited her new status perfectly. I locked eyes with her, murmuring bitterly, "Sarah, please stop." I was terrified the truth about those days would eventually surface. But she couldn't hear my pleading. After posting, she left home for a stroll to clear her mind. Unexpectedly, while wandering the street, Sarah came across a drunken Connie desperately clinging to her boyfriend, refusing to let go. Through sobs, Connie pleaded, "Zach, please believe me. This child is yours, I can explain everything." Only then did I understand. The online uproar of these past few days had finally driven a wedge between Connie and her boyfriend. In order to keep her boyfriend, Connie finally told the truth about what happened that year. None of it was real. Seeing Sarah's curious, almost eager expression made my heart jolt. The very thing I feared most had finally come true. "Please, Sarah, just leave. Go away," I silently begged. But she couldn't hear my plea. Connie continued frantically, "Zach, Ethan and we were only acting the whole time. He paid me to pretend. Nothing ever actually happened between us. Please, you have to believe me." Sarah's expression twisted instantly. She grabbed Connie's arm, her voice sharp and fierce. "What did you just say? Explain yourself. Why did you two do something like that back then? And Ethan, where is he right now?" One look at Sarah's furious face sobered Connie immediately. Pain filled her eyes as she shook her head helplessly. "I don't know, Sarah. He only paid me to act. He never told me why. I don't even know where he is now. Afterward, he paid me off and warned me clearly to stay far away from you." Connie had broken our agreement after all, spilling everything she knew to Sarah. Anger and panic surged within me. After hearing Connie's confession, Sarah finally grasped the cruel truth I'd hidden from her. I had deceived her from the very beginning. Her face darkened with determination. Immediately she pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts until she found the number I'd used 5 years ago. Without hesitation, she called it. There was only silence. No one picked up. Connie spoke up hesitantly, "I told you earlier, you wouldn't be able to reach him. Before I moved away, I saw Ethan being forced into a car by some shady-looking men. Something felt wrong, so I called him repeatedly, but he never answered. It was always the same, no response, nothing. Eventually, I just gave up. Now, with these rumors spreading wildly online about me and him, it's strange he hasn't come forward at all. That's not Ethan's style. Sarah, I'm really starting to think something serious might have happened to him." She paused, looking cautiously at Sarah, before adding softly, "I overheard those men talking to Ethan once. They sounded dangerous. You might want to look into it." Sarah lowered her phone, her expression faltering for a moment. "Impossible. Ethan's cunning, and everyone's afraid of him. He's not someone easily messed with. There's no way anything happened." Even as she said those words, Sarah stumbled out of the building, visibly shaken. Just as she reached home, her phone rang urgently again. It was from the hospital. Her mother, Mrs. Waldorf, had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. Sarah rushed back immediately, and I hurried after her. When we arrived at the hospital, I saw nurses desperately trying to calm Mrs. Waldorf down. She shoved them aside, fighting off their attempts to restrain her as she raced toward the hospital exit, her eyes wild and frantic. "Sarah! Sarah, where are you? Ethan and I have been looking everywhere for you." "Sarah, Ethan said it's dangerous outside. I listened to him and didn't run around. Don't be angry anymore. Sarah, we finally have a real home now. Ethan's a good boy. You'll be happy with him." Suddenly, Mrs. Waldorf froze, her face contorted with panic. No, wait. Ethan, where's Ethan? They took him. Come on. We have to save Ethan. I saw it, they took him away. Dread settled heavily in my heart. The night Sarah and I parted ways 5 years ago, she disregarded her barely healed body, frantically packed her bags, and booked the earliest flight available. By dawn, she was gone. When Sarah took Mrs. Waldorf onto the plane, I couldn't risk showing myself. I just quietly trailed behind them, watching from a distance as they passed through the boarding gate and disappeared inside. Only after their plane had lifted into the sky did those men finally catch up to me. Could it be that Mrs. Waldorf witnessed everything that happened that morning? Back in the hospital, Sarah urgently called for doctors, who quickly administered a sedative to calm her mother down. Gradually, Mrs. Waldorf's frantic screams faded, and she slipped once again into a troubled sleep. Even in unconsciousness, her body remained tense. Sarah sobbed uncontrollably, tears streaking her pale face. Gently, hopelessly, I wrapped my arms around her trembling form, even though she couldn't feel me. "My dear Sarah, these past few years must have been so difficult for you. I'm sorry. It was me who caused all your pain. But please rest assured, I've already paid the price. I'm dead now, and my punishment is complete. Perhaps knowing this will bring you some comfort." Sarah stayed beside her mother's bedside for a while longer. Only after seeing that she'd settled into a deeper sleep did she finally leave the room. That night, Sarah couldn't close her eyes even once. Wrapped tightly in her own embrace, her face drawn and weary, she murmured softly into the silence. Could what Mom said in the hospital possibly be true? Who were those people? "Ethan, just how many secrets did you hide from me?" She tossed and turned until morning, finally drifting into an uneasy sleep at dawn. The moment she woke, Sarah reached for her phone and immediately contacted a private investigator, desperate to find out my whereabouts and uncover what had really happened 5 years ago. The next day, a report landed in her inbox. Sarah anxiously tapped open the file, and instantly froze in shock. Ethan. Sentenced to life imprisonment 5 years ago for killing over a dozen men in an abandoned factory. My heart pounded violently. The dark secrets I'd tried so desperately to hide were finally about to come to light. It all started when Sarah was 18. The Waldorf family fortune suddenly collapsed overnight, and her father, Robert Waldorf, was diagnosed with leukemia. Unable to secure funds for treatment, he passed away within a few short months. Mrs. Waldorf couldn't bear the loss, breaking down mentally in a single night. Sarah, who had always lived a life of privilege, fell from heaven straight into hell. People reveal their true colors in darkness. Those who once flattered her now lined up eagerly to kick her while she was down. I fought them off, one after another, using nothing but my fists. Using whatever money I had left, I rented a cheap apartment and moved Sarah and her mentally unstable mother inside. But medical treatment for her mother was costly, and Sarah still needed money to finish school. I took jobs as muscle for hire, dealing in all kinds of shady, unspeakable business. My body became covered in scars and bruises, old wounds layered beneath new ones. Sarah would hold me tightly from behind, her voice trembling as she pleaded softly, "Ethan, please stop." I promised her I would, but secretly, I kept going back. Because it makes money fast. When Sarah finally graduated from college, I scraped together everything I had left to buy her a modest house, not too big, not too small, but decorated exactly in her favorite style. For the first time, we had a real home. Not long afterward, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. The news hit me like a joyous tidal wave, leaving me dizzy with happiness. I believed that after all the darkness we'd endured, our days of struggle were finally over. I was ready to leave behind the violent life for good. After all, working as hired muscle had always been dangerous, any moment could have been my last. Now I had Sarah and our unborn child to think about. But before I could even approach my employer about quitting, someone took revenge on him. He was murdered. Having worked as his enforcer for years, I'd earned myself a long list of enemies. Once my boss was gone, they immediately set their sights on me, and soon discovered Sarah was my weakness. They'd do anything to hurt her, knowing it would be the cruelest revenge, forcing me to helplessly watch the woman I loved, and our unborn child, destroyed before my eyes. At first, I foolishly believed I could keep them safe. But I had severely underestimated those ruthless people. How could I, a man with everything to lose, possibly outmatch those with nothing at stake? One day, when I took Mrs. Waldorf to a hospital appointment, they seized their opportunity. Behind my back, they drugged Sarah, dragged her to a rooftop, and cruelly coaxed her into jumping from a terrifying height. When I returned home with Mrs. Waldorf, my heart froze at the horrific sight. Sarah lay motionless on the ground, her delicate body broken, blood pooling around her. My soul felt like it was instantly drained, paralyzed by a sense of helplessness unlike anything I'd ever known. Almost simultaneously, my phone buzzed with a taunting message from those bastards. "Having fun yet, Ethan? Next time, she might not survive. But the old lady beside you seems pretty entertaining too, doesn't she? Then, the line went dead. Panic surged through me, overwhelming all rational thought. Without a moment's hesitation, I scooped Sarah's limp, bloodied body into my arms and rushed her to the hospital. Thankfully, the rooftop wasn't too high. After intensive treatment, Sarah survived, but our unborn child didn't. Each day as I sat by her bedside, watching her pale, fragile figure lying motionless, clarity slowly came to me. I couldn't gamble with her life again. I wanted her to live, even if it meant sending Sarah and Mrs. Waldorf far away, to a place those ruthless men would never find. But I couldn't follow. I still had one critical thing left to do. Sarah remained unconscious in the hospital bed for an entire month. When she finally opened her eyes again, she had no memory of why she'd fallen from the rooftop. She assumed she'd simply lost her footing during a dizzy spell, an unfortunate accident. But before she could reflect further, she saw me deliberately leaning over another woman, dressed provocatively, sharing an intimate kiss right in front of her. Her gaunt, pale face went rigid in shock, her wide eyes filling with disbelief. "Ethan," she whispered hoarsely, voice trembling, "what are you doing?" I forced myself to sneer down at her, pouring as much cruelty as possible into my gaze. "What does it look like I'm doing? Did you really think someone like you, with your broken, useless body, could satisfy me anymore?" My voice turned sharper, colder. "Get out of my sight while I still have patience left. Take your crazy mother with you. I'm sick and tired of dealing with a worthless, pathetic woman who can't do a damn thing." With each brutal word I spoke, the remaining color drained from her face, until finally she broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably. "Ethan, what's happening? Why are you doing this to me?" Her desperate cries tore me apart from the inside out, pain scorching through my chest like an uncontrollable fire, threatening to consume me. Yet I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to reach out to hold her. Instead, I took the beautiful woman's hand and walked coldly out of the hospital. I never went back to see Sarah again. Instead, I threw myself into a deliberately reckless lifestyle, projecting a facade of lavish decadence every single day. The last time we saw each other, she'd come to the bar, clutching a small fruit knife, pressing the blade against the artery on her wrist. "Ethan," she said desperately, tears streaming down her cheeks, "I don't believe you're truly this heartless." Seeing that sharp blade so close to her delicate skin made my heart pound wildly. Terrified she'd really hurt herself, I lunged forward instantly, knocking the knife from her trembling hand. But as soon as I saw the faint hope flicker in her eyes, I forced myself to laugh cruelly again. "You really are relentless, aren't you?" I sneered. "Go ahead, cut yourself. Do it, and I promise your crazy mother will follow right behind you." It worked exactly as I'd intended. The knife fell from her fingers, clattering onto the floor. She stared at me, disbelief etched across her pale, tear-streaked face. She couldn't fathom that I'd threaten her mother. After all, she'd always seen me treat Mrs. Waldorf with nothing but gentle care, even after she'd lost her sanity. I threw a bank card contemptuously at Sarah's feet, wrapped my arm possessively around a girl who was busy feeding me grapes, and pulled a wedding invitation from my pocket, shoving it into Sarah's trembling hand. "Next month, on the 8th, my wedding with Connie. You're invited." "Ethan," she whispered, her voice suddenly hollow, lifeless, devoid of the warmth I'd always known. "This is the last time you'll ever see me." All the love vanished from her eyes, replaced by emptiness, despair, and resignation. Then she turned away without hesitation. That was our final goodbye. The memory sank heavily within me, like icy lead filling my chest, making it impossible to breathe. Even after 5 years, I could still recall every expression of pain and betrayal on Sarah's face. Every single one had sliced into my soul, leaving wounds that never healed. Sarah, after reading the investigator's report, had turned deathly pale. Her body trembled, swaying dangerously until she barely managed to support herself against the wall. Instinctively, desperately, I reached out to catch her. But my desperate hands passed right through her body. After what felt like an eternity, Sarah suddenly seemed to remember something. Quickly, she grabbed her keys and rushed out the door. She drove straight to the police station, approaching the front desk and quietly uttering my name. The police nodded solemnly. "Please, follow me." Panic surged through me. I drifted beside her, screaming desperately, "No. Sarah, please don't go any further. I'm begging you, go back." I didn't want her to see the wreckage that was my lifeless body. I couldn't bear for her to witness that horror. But nothing I did mattered. My hands couldn't touch hers. My voice couldn't reach her ears. Sarah kept moving forward, following the officer until they reached the cold, sterile silence of the morgue. When Sarah saw rows of refrigerated cabinets, her usually gentle voice rose sharply, trembling and desperate. "Why did you bring me here? I want to see Ethan. Where is he?" The young police sighed sympathetically, gently explaining, "Miss Waldorf, Ethan died 1 month ago. He pulled out his own oxygen tube." Sarah stood utterly frozen, her face drained of all color. Her phone slipped from her fingers, clattering unnoticed to the ground. Slowly, her hand shaking, she picked it back up, shaking her head frantically, her voice choked with disbelief and barely restrained tears. "Impossible. He was only in prison, he couldn't have died. Ethan's stronger than that." Her voice broke, growing shrill, defiant. "I know what's happening. He doesn't want to see me, so he's told you all to lie. Take me to him right now. Does he think hiding from me will change anything?" Without another word, Sarah turned sharply, stumbling out of the morgue, desperately searching through the rows of prison cells, hoping against hope to find my face again. But none of those faces belonged to me. One inmate gave a shrill whistle, eyeing Sarah hungrily. "Hey gorgeous, who are you looking for? How about spending some time with me instead?" Sarah didn't back down, desperation thick in her voice. "Have you seen Ethan?" The prisoner clicked his tongue mockingly. "Of all people, why look for that dead man? What, you planning to follow him straight down to hell? Shame though, a pretty thing like you." Laughter erupted around her as more joined in, each jeer more repulsive than the last. "So, this is the woman Ethan obsessed over for years? She's a beauty, all right. Even if Ethan were still alive, his body wouldn't be able to satisfy a woman like you. Let me satisfy you. Hey, count me in." Their obscene taunts echoed off the cold, concrete walls. Sarah's face drained of color, her lower lip trembling and bitten raw. Her shoulders shook uncontrollably as humiliation washed over her. I clenched my fists, fury blazing through me. Lunging forward, I swung desperately at the inmates, yelling with helpless rage, "Say another word and you'll regret it." But no matter how fiercely I lashed out, my fists passed harmlessly through them. They didn't even flinch. Sarah stumbled backward, fleeing in shame and distress. Outside, my corpse had already been wheeled out from the morgue, stiff and frozen solid. Though death had changed me profoundly, the horrific wounds I'd endured before dying were clearly visible, my face, scarred beyond recognition, my legs shattered and mangled, several fingers missing from my broken hands. Gaunt and disfigured, I was barely recognizable as the Ethan she once knew. The man I used to be had vanished completely. She covered her mouth, shaking her head frantically. "Why? Ethan, why did you end up like this?" All strength drained from her body, and she collapsed to the floor, knees buckling beneath her. Her eyes grew redder by the second, tears slipping down without warning, quickly followed by the heart-wrenching sobs she'd been fighting so hard to suppress. The officer gently offered her a tissue, murmuring quietly, "I'm sorry for your loss." Sarah didn't take it. Instead, she kept repeating, desperate for an explanation, "He was supposed to be in prison. Why is he dead? Why?" She stubbornly clung to the hope of a logical explanation, desperate to confirm the story she'd believed all these years, that I'd simply cheated and abandoned her. Anything, rather than face the cruel truth that I'd done it all for her. But reality left no room for doubt. Patiently and carefully, the officer revealed every brutal detail of those past events. The memories I'd forced myself to forget surged violently through me, raw and agonizing. It was as if I was once again reliving every moment of the torture I had endured at those men's hands. I fell helplessly to the ground, gasping for air that no longer reached my lungs. Back then, after silently watching Sarah's plane soar into the sky, I turned around to face that ruthless group of men. They circled me, surrounding me so tightly I couldn't move. One of them sneered, "You're pretty quick, Ethan. It seems like you really care about your beautiful wife." Another chuckled cruelly, "You don't actually think you'll get away this time, do you?" Calmly, almost casually, I lit a cigarette and smiled. Who said anything about getting away? I knew in that moment, I would trade my life to end theirs. Every single one of them. Even if they were arrested, they'd eventually come out again, thirsty for revenge. And when that happened, what would become of my Sarah? Only the dead can't cause harm anymore. They shoved me roughly into a car. On the way, my phone rang abruptly. Anxiety surged, I was terrified it might be Sarah. But it was just an unknown number. Relieved, I exhaled slowly. The men quickly snatched my phone, smashing it to pieces as a precaution. Unarmed and alone against a dozen armed men, I never stood a chance. They dragged me to an abandoned factory, and that's where their sadistic torture began. Knives sliced into my face, steel rods shattered against my skull, and eventually, a saw tore mercilessly into my legs. Every horrific scar on my body came from that night. When I was barely clinging to life, they prepared to dispose of my battered corpse. But they never imagined I'd still have the strength to fight back. Because what they didn't know was, earlier, when they'd let their guard down, I'd slipped something into their drinks. I spent a fortune getting something special from overseas, powerful enough to knock down a herd of elephants. I showed no mercy and poured the contents into their bottles. As I lay bleeding on the cold concrete floor, I watched with grim satisfaction as they collapsed, writhing helplessly, howling in pain, begging for mercy. A cold, savage laugh broke free from my throat. Hurts, doesn't it? You should have thought of this the moment you pushed my wife from that rooftop. You want me dead? Fine. Let's die together. But fate had other plans. I survived. Only after watching each one of them draw their final, gasping breaths did I pick up a knife from the blood-stained ground. I carefully checked each body, ensuring they were truly dead before I finally allowed myself to breathe. Then, using one man's fingerprint to unlock his phone, I dialed the police. There's been a murder at the abandoned factory in the north outskirts. As I waited for the sirens to arrive, a deep, unbearable ache consumed me. I missed Sarah desperately, more than I'd ever imagined possible. Believing my death was near, I impulsively dialed her number. When she answered, the sudden sound of her voice rendered me speechless, terrified. She cursed me briefly before hanging up angrily. But even hearing her curse filled me with a bittersweet warmth. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my battered face. In that moment, even her anger felt like a gift. When the police finally arrived, I confessed everything without hesitation. I was sentenced to life imprisonment and spent the next 5 agonizing years confined to the prison infirmary, enduring treatment after treatment. Yet, every day without Sarah felt like slow, relentless torture. I considered reaching out to her many times, desperate to explain everything. But each time my fingers hovered over the phone, the emptiness below my waist reminded me bitterly of who I'd become. Just before her number connected, I'd quickly end the call. By then, Sarah had become a rising star overseas, successful, respected, loved by everyone. How could I, a crippled convict, ever be worthy of her? The moment I heard she'd returned home, engaged to a man who genuinely adored her, I knew my life was over. Imagining a future spent lying helplessly in bed, forced to watch Sarah find happiness in another man's arms, was more than I could bear. The pain alone was enough to kill me. Sarah was right, I was a selfish, petty man. In the end, I'd rather die. But what I never imagined was that even death wouldn't grant me escape, that my soul would linger, watching helplessly as everything unfolded. Sarah was crying so hard she could barely breathe, clutching her chest as if it might burst apart. Ethan, she sobbed bitterly, was it really worth it? Did you think doing all this would move me, make me happy? You selfish, foolish man. Even as she cursed me, Sarah gently took my broken body away. After my cremation, she grew alarmingly thin. My heart shattered at the sight. With a voice that no longer reached her ears, I whispered hoarsely, "Sarah, please let go. It's all over now." What surprised me even more was when Sarah found Michael and broke off their engagement. Shortly afterward, on a bright, peaceful morning, she quietly announced her retirement from music. Taking my ashes with her, she brought Mrs. Waldorf back to the small house we once shared, the place that had stayed exactly as we'd left it. She'd never sold it, after all these years. But the truth remained unchanged, we could never go back. I sat down helplessly, sobbing uncontrollably like a lost child, feeling my soul begin to fade. In those final moments before disappearing, I summoned all my strength and called out desperately, even though she couldn't hear me, "Sarah. Take good care of yourself." Then I was gone. May every happiness find you, wherever your gaze may fall.